Alright, hello guys. Sorry I'm a little rough this morning, but here is what we've got for the split sleeper calculator. Now it occurs to me that where people tend to get mixed up is not on the first sleeper split, it's if they continue rolling splits, they have an expectation that they'll get time back. So when they won't. So I did make a couple small changes, but here's how it works. You can either choose the 7-2 or 8-2 or 7-3 or 8-2 split. Most people, I would think, would be starting with the short chunk of that split, but you can opt to start with the long one if you want to do the sleeper berth portion first. Planning mode is you're planning ahead. So like if you're going to start with a short chunk and you know that here in an hour I want to stop and take that 2-hour chunk, you would set it to that. But most people, I think, are going to use the first break just finished. This is, getting tied up at a shipper or receiver, or for whatever reason, you've already been in an off-duty status for 2 or 3 hours or more, and you want to consider that to be your first chunk. In that case, you set the current time. So it is 3:03 a.m. here, so you'll set it that. Now, important note, if you're running an ELD, which most of us are, you want to be sure, one, that your ELD has the sleeper berth split function enabled. You want to be sure that your ELD has considered your 2 or 3 hour break to be a part of a planned split and has paused your 14-hour clock. How your ELD works, I don't know, but you want to be sure that it is playing ball with this planned split. Otherwise, your frozen 14-hour clock isn't going to do, any good for you. So then it wants a little bit of information from you. At the time of the split, how many drive hours do you have? We'll just go ahead with their example here, or my example, 5.5 hours. How many on-duty hours do you have? 7.75 hours. At the time of the first chunk of the break. Now, how much more work do you plan to do after you've completed that chunk? So we've said we've just finished our break. We have 5.5 hours available. I plan to drive 5 hours worth of that, let's say. Or rather, you know what? I plan to drive it all out. I'm going to finish out those 5.5 hours. I expect that I'll use 6 hours of my on-duty time because I'm going to have to stop for fuel. So that's how we fill that in, and then we click on go. So here's how it breaks it down. It gives like an actual worded description of how this is going to work after the full split is completed. Once you've done that, the big chunk after your work day, what the timeline is going to look like, and a little visual summary of what your hours are going to look like. What I've added now is this thing, because this is where people get kind of boogered up. So you open that up, and it tells you what you can expect and how the next split will work. You're going to be starting out with 5.5 hours of drive time available, 8 hours of on-duty time available, and basically you've already closed out your rest break because you've done a full 10 hours between your 8 and your 2. So the hours worked in between those two, those are already baked in. Those don't come back to you. And this explains, what you will have, what you won't have, and an example of what you'll be able to do with what you do and don't have. I know it's a little wordy, but ultimately, after you've done a split, it's probably a better idea to kind of work your way back towards doing a 10-hour break. But if you plan to do another split for whatever reason, this kind of gives you an idea of what you will have available and what you will not have available. So give it a read. I know it's a lot, but this is where people get themselves into trouble when they start running multiple splits, because they have an expectation that isn't a reality. But otherwise, if you're just, it really should be simple math. It is simple math. however many hours you worked before the 2 hour or the first chunk of the split. However much time was burned up there is essentially what's coming back to you after you've completed your split. But, we've all been there where we're just, bleary-eyed and trying to figure something out, and I'm hoping that this just, you give it the information, it gives you back your information. It tells you, based on that clock time that you gave it, what you can anticipate in terms of timing for your day. So hopefully it just makes things a little bit easier. And again, I have my disclaimer: it's a planning tool. It's a calculator, just like any calculator. It's there to be helpful, but it's not there to run your show for you. Obviously, you need to, as a driver, make sure that you're being compliant both with motor carrier regulations and with your company's policies. So use this as a resource, but not as a Bible. But yeah, so that's that. And it's live now, so cool.